Good evening. How are you? It's been one of those days. First of all, it's in the 70s somewhere, but comfortable. It's not windy, and it's good. And that's the end of my TJ report, my Thomas Jefferson weather report. um, you have to recall what it was like if you've been a parent dealing with a child, and when you were a child, and look at that experience and what we see daily with anybody within feet of Trump. So Trump had his trial begin today. This is the one in New York. This is the one about basically taking his empire apart because it's built on legs of fraud. He apparently had a staring contest with the Attorney General at one point. What does he think he is back in Flushing, Queens, when he weighed a pound and a half per pound more than another kid, and with his height and weight could hold it over him? My friends and I, these guys were our specialty. But that was the Bronx, I don't know what it's like in Queens. But I do think, seeing how he is as an adult, that's how he was as a young man, trying to come into Manhattan using his dad's money. But the thing today is, here he's acting like a person that knows no appropriate way to conduct himself in intense and difficult situations. He becomes a child, and I may have told this story before. The first time I appeared on Fox, which I was appearing at a fair amount of time when Trump was elected, and I stopped because it became horrendous to do that once he was elected. And whatever interview it was, O'Reilly wasn't there, and somebody else was, and they went to me, and I think it was about the border, and I said that Trump was the man-child. And Waters, that was the name of the guy, he gets out of control. He says, "How can you say that about your president?" I say, "He's not my president." And then the other guest they have, that I think was to help Waters control me, said I should be embarrassed for saying that. I said, "I'm not embarrassed." I said, "We could call Trump his accidency." And from that day forward, all the most pessimistic suspicions and statements I had about the guy have proven true. And any of you who had that same feeling, particularly if you were from New York and had seen him for years, probably had that feeling. And so today, we see it before us. Now, why is he in the courtroom? He's in the courtroom in part because he's been subpoenaed as a witness. And he decided to give testimony during the depositions because, to invoke the Fifth Amendment, which is good for criminal cases, in civil cases you can draw an adverse inference. In other words, if somebody asked him, "How the hell did you take an apartment that was 10,000 feet and claim it was 30,000 feet? How did you claim it was X dollars and then claim and say it was some stratospheric number greater than that?" So we see a guy who's just kind of crooked about everything. He pretends he's on covers, he gets on covers, he calls up anonymously in order to get coverage of himself. He is the proven anti-hero. Is not right, see, because he's not a hero, he's a crook, he's a criminal, and that through and through. So our dialogue on a daily basis is talking about what kind of a criminal he is and how we're going to stop him. And that answer would have been easier if we always applied the standards to regular behavior and enforcement of the law from the beginning. But, and I know I can't say it enough, the Attorney General is such a wastrel. Why he's in that office is beyond me. Who would want to be in that office and not use the power that you have for good? Who would not want to go after a criminal president? I'm at a loss. So then in Congress, we have this bizarre situation in which, if I understood correctly from Biden today, the McCarthy had assured them that they're going to have funds for Ukraine, meaning weapons to fight the war. And it's clear if they don't get those weapons, they'll lose the war. And if you're on the side of Putin, explain that to me, then that's what you'd like the outcome to be. So now McCarthy is not so sure he can deliver. And then we have others who want to get rid of him, and still others, wackos on the Republican side, of course, who want to get rid of those who would get rid of McCarthy. So I ask you, does this remind you of anything like when you were a parent or child? Now, my dad and mom were pretty forgiving people for their annoying little son. And as the firstborn, you gotta cut a path for yourself. But my dad, who had been somewhat of a truant as a kid, and my mom, I think she was pretty straight-laced and a serious student, but they both had decent DNA. And so I won that lottery. And the key then is to find things that help you to use it. And I don't know if I've done that to the best, but I've tried. So that's kind of a different parenting template. What was his? He edged his brother out of the way. He tried to dominate. He moved in on his dad's business and everything. That this is our national dialogue, wherever you are on the spectrum of ready to blow up your TV or go downtown and protest or try to wipe it out of your mind like Nellie Forbush. I'm going to wash that scandal right out of my mind. Then you're in a place that's not where we were meant to be or should be or need to be if we have a regular government, and we don't. So what would that be like? I had these experiences today that maybe are more heightened to me because I isolate to some extent because I can't get COVID because it might affect Holly, and it might affect me too, and my fear is of long COVID, losing this part of my brain, the executive function, which it allows me to do the things that I enjoy doing. And I'm at a point in my life where it seems to be working pretty well, so I'd hate to mess it up. And I always think, and I've mentioned Tim Kaine, who had that. So what was so special about today? So let's take an ordinary thing. We lawyers do a thing, continuing legal education. And you have to have so many hourly credits by certain dates. And I need about 6 before the end of the month. So that's about 6 hours. It's not a big deal. But I want to get a course I'll get something out of. And so I took one of these groupings on a national program, which I can present to Virginia. And it was very funny because 3 of the, 12 or 15 batches of courses included lectures by myself on evidence and scientific evidence and so forth. And so the guy who saw the courses that I picked, he calls me up from Florida on vacation. And he asked me, can he help me? Is there anything I'd rather listen to as a continuing legal education? And his child's in the background, and he's on vacation, and he's calling me. And I said, well, I've been trying to study artificial intelligence because my undergraduate degrees are physics and engineering, and I have a master's in information science, and this fascinates me. And he said, well, I can change out some of those courses and put that in. I said, thank you. And we talked about family. That's an interrelationship. He didn't have to do it. He was on vacation. I had filled it out electronically, and he did that. Somebody else calls me today, and what do they talk to me about? First, they want to be sure how to vote for the race I'm running for the Soil and Water Board. And then they ask how Holly is doing. And it was very nice. And I told them, basically, she's got powerful lungs, but side effects from the various medications she's supposed to take. And he says, well, there's this Mideastern concoction that I do that you might enjoy. And so he tells me about it. He talks about it. It says how he's taking it. And he says the mixture of ginger, lemon, and water, forming a kind of tea, then strained. Just take that every day. Now, I will go over it with the transplant doctors, but it's another examination of how we help each other and are good to each other when we just allow us to be that way. Now, from time to time, I've hearkened back to Hofstadter, who was one of my favorite historians and political scientists. And Hofstadter has an analysis of what we're confronting in the non-human way, the nonsense that happens when Trump is acting like a child in court and acting like a gang leader otherwise, and he is one, so I guess he's not just acting, he is a gang leader. And how do these guys measure up to past historical examples? And Hofstadter has analyzed how we have these people from time to time in our history, and he's writing from the 20s, the 30s, and so forth. But you can take those examples and see them today just as clearly. And he talks about the paranoid style in American politics. And what it is the more unbelievable the thing they're sought to believe, and their escape valve is, we'll find the evidence that proves it's true. Now, I said the other day, quoting Carl Sagan, that faith is a belief in something for which there is no evidence. So these guys fit that bill. Now, are the leaders knowing that they're doing this, manipulating the people? Yes, they are. And they choose things that are hurtful. You're not going to find one of them saying, here, you should try this drink. You might find it's helpful to whatever illness you have. Then, another one might say something also human and friendly and helpful. It costs nothing. The other day, a bunch of us who use a local coffee shop showed up, some with masks, some not, to argue that the pathway of traffic shouldn't go where they were going to put it without compromising the coffee shop that we all went to. So you get some idea. And when I went to the doctor today, because it turns out that I have a hernia, and when the doctor said that's what it is, I said, so I don't need an operation, do I? And he said, well, if you were 82 and sedentary and in a home, maybe not, but you're not that guy. So, okay. So I have to assure people that, I can breathe and stuff like that. So I'm talking to a medical assistant, and she has red hair, so she reminds me of my mom and my brother and my dad, and she has a boyfriend, and she loves medicine because her dad had an aneurysm, and that caught her attention. And her life before that wasn't serious, she said. And now it was. So I said to her, well, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to say become a nurse, maybe a doctor? And she thought about it, and she says, yeah, maybe I will. And I didn't invent it for her. She was thinking that. And when I had to draw blood, the nurse who did it, you didn't even feel the needle going in. That's how good she was. And I said, you should count all the times you've given people needles or taken blood and see what that amounts to. And she's been doing this for a number of years, and that was evident in my own experience. And she got all excited. She said, I'm going to do that. And I said, well, and then when you have the number, pull it out at every family occasion when somebody says, so what do you do? Well, I've drawn blood, but not like Dracula, and X thousand times. So these conversations, low impact, friendly, as compared to the viciousness, the heartlessness, the pure brutality of these guys in suits wandering through our institutions like they deserve to be respected. The fallacy among those of us who oppose them is for those to treat them who have, according to Hofstadter and according to our observations, the data points are there. These guys don't agree with us. So there is no negotiation. There is no compromise. And we shouldn't act as if there is. The Democrats have a great leader in the House. And I think I understand why he refers to people as colleagues. But why don't we spell it out for the whole public to know? There is a bunch of Republicans that don't give a damn about this country. They'll compromise it in every way. They'd be fine if we failed, as is the case in every other overturning by autocrats and dictator types and fascists. That's what we're up against. And when we pretend it's otherwise, we compromise ourselves. Because we're not respected for saying, let's deal with this as adults who no longer need parents to tell them what to do. What we're dealing with is we're being used and taken advantage of for our goodness. And so we have to be able to discern. Are there Republicans that are good? I don't know. I mean, I start with an assumption that you can't assume any of them are. But some voted for there to be a stopgap measure so the government wouldn't shut down. But then I hear today that the Republicans all hold together that they're not going to do anything to help Ukraine going forward. I don't know if that's legitimate, if that's reliable, but that shows you the problem. We can't act like fools. We know about appeasement from the great historical Hitler and what he did to Great Britain. And that since Churchill had read Mein Kampf and told people what this guy really was all about, and that you could read it if you want to see it, and then exactly as he predicted it happened, that's how he became the prime minister. We have to recognize the leaders we need in times of conflict. And we have really good people in the House. And we have really good people in the Senate. They have to take off their jackets, roll up their sleeves, and fight, because that's the only thing we can do here. We have to have the numbers. We have to have the debate. And we can't wait until 2 weeks before the election and think it's going to hold. We have to build, and we have to build now. And we have to keep pressing on every front to restore our democracy. So, that's what I got to say. And I wish you farewell this evening from the Cathedral of Trees. Bye-bye.